So, Justin, today I want to talk about 5 words that I've noticed. When people say these words, then they are doomed for failure. And before I jump into what those 5 words are, I want to tell you about a consultation that I had last week. So, I give free consultations to people. We can jump on a 15-minute call. Happy to look at your situation and tell you some quick wins you can get when it comes to AI and automation in your business. And whether you hire me or not, all good. I'm going to point you in the right direction because I'm here to genuinely help people. When I gave a consultation to this company, and looking back on it, they really, really kind of abused my kindness and took advantage of my time and didn't appreciate it. Now, most people do, but this one company stood out, and I noticed that they said, "Well, we can't do this because of this. We can't,
Mhm.
for example, we can't advertise our brand on YouTube because none of our competitors are doing that, and that doesn't work in our industry. We can't do this because of this. We can't." And then it was just excuse after excuse, and then I thought to myself, no wonder you're stuck where you are because if you have that mindset, it's always going to hold you back. So, those 5 words, I can't blank because blank. I've noticed a pattern in people, in organizations, that when you say those words, it holds you back. Instead, if you flip that and you say, well, I know I can do it because this company did
Mm.
it or that person did it, we can find a way to do it, then you're approaching it with positive intent and more doors will open up for you. So I wanted to ask you, have
Mm.
you noticed that pattern in life? Have you noticed people who say that? Have you ever caught yourself saying that? Because I've caught myself saying that before, and I say, well, wait a minute, is that true? And what if I flip that?
Well, I'm human, so 100%. I've said that and I've caught myself saying that. As you're speaking through it, I think what I realize is what you're actually saying is I won't because of. That's it.
Mm,
It becomes a choice. We
right.
positioning it as if it's not a choice by saying I can't. But what you're actually saying is I won't, because then you don't even try. Because then
Uh,
there's well I can't fail, and it's already been decided for me because of X.
mm-hmm.
So I like where you're going with this. We've got to flip it, and we've got to realize, first of all, I think it's being brutally honest with ourselves that we are making a choice in that moment. So what I'm saying, if I say I can't, what I'm saying is I won't. So make peace with that fact, come to terms with that fact, own that fact, and
Mm-hmm.
then choose what you the outcome that you're wanting to have, and start saying what I will do is X, or the small action that I can take is X, or the smallest next step that I can take is X. But ultimately, to your point, and you started with referencing a prospect or a customer or client who possibly took advantage of you in some way, it's what are they wanting to become? Because
Mm-hmm.
perhaps they haven't clarified that in their mind, or maybe that just sounds cool to say we want to become something different, but it's this a shift map. Let's call it a shift map that we've all got to map out. You can, in one column on the left hand side of your page, you can have where I am right now, what type of business I am right now, what type of person I am, what type of leader I am, what type of business owner I am, whatever it is, that's where you are.
Mm-hmm.
On the far right hand side of your page, you can be what I want to shift to. So what do I want to become? What kind of business do I want us to be? How do I want us to operate? How do I want us to show up for team members? What kind of a person do I want to be? And then there's a gap in between. And that gap is the shift, the action that needs to be taken. And if we're just
Mm-hmm.
going to be saying, well, I can't become that because, and I can't become that thing because, we can never ever make any sort of shift. And the only way that we can bridge who we are to where we're wanting to be is through some form of action. And that's a bit of a long winded answer, but I think it goes all the way back to realizing as soon as you say, I can't, you're making a choice. You're making a choice to say, I won't.
Yeah, yeah, very true. It reminds. I was speaking at an event a few weeks ago, and I talk a lot about leveraging AI and automation to publish content at scale, to show up on social media everywhere, to show up in the traditional media in written content, blogs, articles all around the net, because that's how we get picked up by AI search. This applies to whether you're B2B or B2C, the strategies that I teach. Well, one of the gentlemen in the audience, he was like, well, this won't work in my business because we're B2B. We're selling to offices and nobody's scrolling on social media looking for a coffee supplier for their office. He kind of, he was nice about it. It was during Q&A, and he kind of tried to challenge me. And what was interesting is there was another young lady in the audience in his same industry who actually jumped in, and she had read my book and everything, and she practiced things that I teach, and she said, she's like, actually, here's what I did. I followed Ethan's principles, and we posted a TikTok video of just us in the office having fun on Halloween. And that video ended up going viral. And we actually got business from this LinkedIn post just showing our company having fun. And I thought that was kind of cool because that's exactly what I talk about. It's like just showing up, being human, entertaining, educating, inspiring, and frequently delivering value to people online is going to get you more business, even in an indirect way. But people think so literally and just have blinders on to, oh, this won't work for my business. We have to do it this way because that's the only way that works for our industry. Nothing I told the guys like, well, look, if all of your competitors are thinking the way you're thinking, then you have an opportunity to stand out on all of these other channels because your competition isn't there. So don't see this as a limitation, see it as an opportunity.
And Ethan, what do you think in the case of an a can't that is actually legitimate? What do you think the action in that case is? Because sometimes the I can't do that thing because X, that is the reality of the situation. You actually cannot physically or whatever it is, you cannot do that thing. What do you think the right frame of mind or
Right.
the words to use or the next action to take in that instance would be? Because and I think that's an important question to ask because sometimes that is the reality. There is a constraint that you have to work within. So the solution that we just suggested that won't work and it can't work. How do we move forward?
Well, I would love to hear an example of that from you, if you can think of one. It's hard for me to think of one in a business context
Sure.
because whenever that pops in my mind, the first thing I tend to think is, well, has someone else done it? If anyone
Mm,
else has done it and they have the same variables that I have, if they're dealing with a similar set of cards that I've been dealt and they achieved it, then I can achieve it too. And so that's the first thing I look for is real world examples. And then if
mm,
there's no other like physical limitation, I mean, I'm not 7 feet tall. I'm not going to go play in the NBA, but that, that's not a business example, but there are physical limitations sometimes to things that we want to do. There may be medical things holding us back, but I look at those patterns. Even with a medical situation or some type of physical limitation, I look for examples where if someone else has that same physical limitation, did they do it? And if they did, then
mm.
I'm giving myself excuses. And one thing I learned in college when I pledged my fraternity that has stuck with me my whole life is this poem called Excuses. And it goes,
Yeah.
excuses are tools for the incompetent. They build monuments of nothingness. Those who choose to use them seldom amount to anything. And that
Mm,
poem got ingrained in my brain and it has stuck with me ever since. And I believe that has shaped my subconscious to always think that way. Like, am I just making an excuse here? Which 9 times out of 10, that's what it is. It's really not a valid reason. I'll say even more than 9 times out of 10. I'm gonna say making up a statistic, but I'm gonna say
yeah.
95% of the time you're just making up an excuse and a limitation in your head that isn't really there if you look for real world examples and you apply yourself to achieve that thing that you want to achieve.
I'm with you on that. And I'm not going to try and come up with an actual example. I like where you've gone with this conversation. It's we think we're giving reasons, but what we're actually doing is we providing an excuse in that moment. And to add to that, I think what we're also doing is ultimately what we've got to decide, and whether this is in our business or whether it's in our personal lives, what we're saying is, I want to change. I want to become different. I want to do something differently. I want to improve my system. I want to improve the way that I show up. I think we lose sight of that end goal because the first idea that is put out there, you can automate your system by using X, Y, and Z. And the first words that come out, I can't because my existing system can't sync with that system, or doesn't plug into that system, or doesn't talk to it. Okay, we're losing sight of what we're actually trying to do because your first point of call then might be, well, change the existing system that you're using or the existing software or whatever it is that you're using so that you can then find a way to automate and plug in and move on. So I think that's really important is the I can't is when we too zoomed in. The I can often happens when we zoom out and we're looking at the bigger pictures of I want to change, I want to do something differently. And if that's always the goal, there's always another way. And I think that's what I'm taking from what you're saying. If we always just try to show up differently, be different, be better, change something, there are a million ways to do it. So just to say I can't because we didn't agree, or we actually can't do the first one that comes up, that's that defeatist mindset. That's that excuse maker that just doesn't allow you to move forward.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great king move to leave people with. And if I had to leave people with a king move today, it's something that I learned from a mentor of mine years ago. And it's that there's nothing new under the sun. So if someone else, if there's something you want to do in life, someone else has probably already done it or done a version of it. There's not much that's really new if you think about it. So go find people who have done something similar that you to your ambition and read their book, watch their YouTube videos. They probably put out content about it, and you can learn from the path that they've paved ahead of you and avoid some of those mistakes, mimic some of those patterns, and then build upon that. But once you do that, then you also see that there are no excuses. They did it. I can do it. I can model them and apply it to my life and to my business.
Those are the shortcuts everybody's always after. That's the reality. Don't
That's it.
reinvent the wheel. That's the
Closest thing
shortcut.
we'll get
Learn
to
from those
shortcuts. So, yeah.
exactly. Learn from those who've gone before. I love it.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Ethan.
Jeff.